Hello there and a very warm welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Mathias. Now, leading AI nations convened for the first time earlier in the UK, including the United States and China, along with the European Union, and reached a world-first agreement at Bletchley Park, establishing a shared understanding of the opportunities and risks posed by the frontier AI and the need for governments to work together to meet the most significant challenges. Now, today on the show, we'll take a look at how AI will influence the Nigerian and African industries and also the challenges therein. Plus, we'll also be looking at how health tech can positively impact the Nigerian health sector. But before we get into all of this, let's first of all take a look at the trends, social media, of course, in the past week.
Residents of Kogi, Bayelsa and Imo went to the polls to decide who will lead them for the next 4 years. Though winners have emerged and have received certificates of return issued by INEC, some irregularities are said to have taken place, varying from voter inducement, time of arrival by INEC officials, malfunctioning of the BVAS, and alleged filling of election result sheets before the commencement of the election. The Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja made the headlines after it sacked 2 governors, Abba Yusuf of Kano State and Caleb Muftuang of Plateau State, within the space of 48 hours. Both governors have, however, instructed their legal teams to take the matter to the Supreme Court.
Many thanks for staying with us again. Those were the trends in the past week. Elections. But moving forward now, let's face the topic of the day. And joining us is David Alozie. He is the founder and chief innovation officer for Disruptive Innovation Lab and Wired Tooth Technologies Limited, which has some few awards-winning state startups under his portfolio. David joins us from our Lagos studio. David, it's a pleasure to have you join us today on the show.
Thank you very much, Victor. It's a pleasure being here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure having you as well. So, AI has been pretty much on the lips of every techpreneur, tech enthusiast, and of course, we keep hearing about AI and the future of work. But we now are beginning to see that, governments are beginning to come together. Like I said earlier in my intro, there was a convention of governments, the U.S., China, which happened in the UK. Coming together to discuss, the threats and the positive impacts that AI can actually, come into place. But first of all, just give us a brief history, let me put it that way, of how we got here and how AI is now taking over and, making changes in pretty much every aspect of our life.
All right, thank you very much, Victor. Of course, AI has been there with us for some years, and you want to maybe sign up with some bank application. The AI is able to check your liveliness if you're somebody out there. Or sometimes some of these social media platforms could use AI to be able to recommend the right contents to you. So, for example, you go to some video reeling platform where you just watch a few videos and the AI is able to understand your preference without you trying to impute the kind of videos you want to watch. The AI is able to understand and recommend videos that are in line with what you are looking at. So AI has been there with us for so long. In fact, AI is used in fighting terrorism in some other countries. AI is believed to be used in elections and so many other things. But the problem with AI then was that AI was not democratized. Not everybody had access to AI. Not everybody could really afford what it takes to have good AI. But back then, it's getting to 1 year, last year, November 30th, where the product was launched by OpenAI, ChatGPT. That changed everything. And within a few days, they broke the record of user-based acquisition. Within a few days, they got millions of users, which broke the history in the tech industry. And what happened is that, ChatGPT is powered by a large language model called GPT-3, then GPT 3.5 then. And what it does was that it's able to generate content, help you write proposals, generate any kind of content you want, as if you had a consultant sitting there with you trying to, to do those things then. So what happens is that everybody had access to it. And if you looked at the numbers then, even in Nigeria, it was noticed that the search for AI grew by over 300% of Google search. So what happened was that every brand, from Google and everybody, were on their toes trying to see, how could we beat this? Because millions of people were using it, people were talking about it, people saw what it could do. There were a lot of tension, a lot of threats, and different organizations restructuring, trying to add AI to their product and all that. And presently, every month, every 3 months, things are changing. You're not even sure what's going to happen in the next 2 months. Technologies are coming to make AI better, making you have more hardware that could provide AI at a low cost. So a whole lot of things is happening there in the past 1 year, and a whole lot have happened, and more is still going to happen. So that is.
All right, very well. Let's look at the threats. Which is one of the things that people are quite concerned about, and perhaps one of the reasons why they held that conference in the UK. Let's look at threats that, of course, we know that the possibilities are pretty much limitless and endless, so to speak. Now, the positive possibilities, but we're not looking at the negative. People are not. I don't think we have a sense of what GPT, ChatGPT, or any of those AIs can be used, to do. For instance, deepfakes. Now, deepfakes can easily be concocted with any of the open AI, platforms that we have. Google is opening. Google has its own, like you said. We have Bard. There are a couple of them out. So, the threats. How do you identify those threats?
Okay, so I could categorize the threat into different areas, right? There is a threat for cybersecurity on one side, and there's a threat to shaping of cultures in ways that cannot be controlled. There's also a threat of information. So starting from the cybersecurity side, before when we talk about being hacked online, we hear things like social engineering, where some hackers could go get some information about you on social media and try to use it to reset your password or call maybe your provider on a shopping platform or your banks, or try to predict your password, and so on. Those are one level, and several organizations have put several structures, to fight that. But with deepfake, we have somebody using AI to probably get some few seconds of your voice, and is able to clone your voice, and is able to clone even like your thinking pattern, your speaking pattern, or is able to get a picture of you, and is able to generate some videos of you saying some words, and all that. So even with the technology where financial institutions are trying to do a liveness test to understand that if it was you, or facial recognition, that poses a new kind of threat. So it makes cybersecurity, which is already hard, a bit tougher, because technologies are there, to make people to impersonate anyone as much as they can. And the technology is getting more democratized, and it's getting more into the hands of people, which is why, we have a lot of conferences happening in the UK, and this executive order that was given by the US government, to actually control this thing. Then another thing, a threat about AI is that AI, right now, just the way in the past where you want to, before we had Google search and the rest of them, people had to go to the library to get information. But a time came, people say, hey, just Google it. And so in a way, it now became as if it's like a source of truth in a way. So what happens is that some of these large language AI models that people use are being trained using some data which might not cover so many areas. And so to say, it becomes a bit biased, not intentionally biased, because you only train large language models based on the data you have. So I will give you an example. For example, if you go to some of these AI models and say, okay, give me a picture, of, say, a beautiful woman and all that, it will give you a result of like some kind of look or dressing which some religious persons might have issues with, or some cultural issues and all that. So those are some kind of threat. And there's also a scale of AI, taking over one or two things and all that. So in a way, it's going to affect culture, it's going to affect thinking, source of truth. Cybersecurity is going to be very high, So there is a lot that needs to be done in us trying to, manage the narratives and even have our own models that truly represent what we want it to be in the future.
All right, correct. Let me quickly read out a quote from the Nigerian Minister for Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, during that conference in the UK. So he says, artificial intelligence offers an unprecedented opportunity to appropriate knowledge more quickly and seamlessly in addressing some of our pressing socioeconomic challenges. Our duty as policymakers is to ensure that our nation can participate and mainstream value creation from AI. So that this is his position on AI. Are you seeing any moves in that direction to ensure that we mainstream it? We mainstream the value creation from AI.
Okay, so definitely there are some present moves that are made available. We hear of some activities that are going on, from the side of the government. But the truth is that so much work still needs to be done. Right, because if you look at the level of funding available to help researchers, do what they need to do, it might not be so much to go by. And like I mentioned, most of the large language model we use are all, trained based on data from from other countries and all that. So even we in Nigeria and Africa, we have to start talking about how we want to build our model, because this is going to really shape culture. It's going to shape what the answer we get. To a large extent now, we had the issue of misinformation. And most times, this misinformation we get are from people that go online, look at some blogs, and they get some information, and they, kind of assume that it's true because it's online. So imagine if we have the information that doesn't suit our culture or suit the thinking of the government or the policies of the government, and everybody's using it. In a way, you have people who will be thinking or taking action which is not in line with the way the government wants it to be or the way it should be for the betterment of the people. So a lot of more work needs to be done. I would say most of the work that I see going on AI in Nigeria is more academic focused. There's a lot, because AI has been democratized now. A lot of work needs to be done. A lot of grassroots engagement, communities, developer communities, businesses supporting, trying to build a large language model. There's a whole lot that needs to be done. So I would say what's going on, a lot is happening, but a lot still needs to be done in some other strategic ways to ensure that the future, is kind of, saved for the good of Nigeria.
I am absolutely. Let's hope that, of course, like we always say, you can't do it all alone. So hopefully more work will be done. But let's look at generative AI, because as we are planning to mainstream value from AI, we're looking at generative AI and looking at how, perhaps it might be stealing jobs here and there. But people are of the opinion, experts are of the opinion that, those who master AI will not lose their jobs. Instead, they would use AI to further boost their earnings and all of that. But what's your view, in that respect?
So, like I always say, most time when I talk to people in companies and all, AI is not going to replace anybody. It's those that use AI that are going to replace you. Because AI presents so much opportunities. We have countries like UAE, trying to come up with ministries to support AI and the rest of them. And that's because AI has a multiplier effect. If the government is able to harness the potentials, if the government say we want to use, say, $100 million to run a project to empower people and all that, if you leverage AI, you could achieve multiple of such results with such budget. It helps you maximize the budget that you have. So normally, a whole lot of things are changing with the advent of generative AI. In fact, we even have companies, the first casualty that was consumed by the AI in the first 3-4 months, and that's because people could use ChatGPT to solve their assignments, and this startup, because of some lack of proactiveness, they couldn't continue. They lost their shares, and we have companies trying to adjust, because companies are profit-making persons. So for me, I have a prediction where in the future, just the way people in the past some years back, there was a time that companies would need you to understand how to use computers, do Excel, do Microsoft Word, browse the internet before they could say, hey, you're a good hire. So in the near future, not so far from now, companies will be putting all their data, into their own local AI model, their large language model. And what that's going to do is people going online to use data analytics to get information, how much sales was made 10 days ago in so place, or can you generate a graph for me, and all those things. you will have staff who will be going and be querying the AI model that is augmented with the company's data in a database, and is able to provide dynamic data within few seconds, and it will help companies, achieve a lot very fast. So just the way people needed to understand computer, there's a field called prompt engineering, which is very important. If you want to upgrade yourself, you need to understand to leverage prompt engineering, to help your career, in that area. So in 3 years from now, companies are already working around that.
Yeah.
A lot of big companies are already building technologies that help them to, have their data into an AI model that they could leverage to accelerate activities and make, better values in their companies.
Oh, well, let's hope that not only companies will adopt AI, but also individuals will as well, to better themselves, better their earnings, and of course, just find the good in AI, and use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, their businesses as well. But I would say thank you for joining us on the show today, David Alozie, for sharing your thoughts and sharing your thoughts, of course.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Always a pleasure, always a pleasure. Thank you again for joining us. Absolutely, anytime. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll switch lanes and take a look at how tech health can change the Nigerian health sector. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. So we're now being joined by Ayo Adebamowo. He's a techpreneur who is committed to adding value to healthcare delivery through digital innovation. He joins us via Zoom from London. Ayo, it's a pleasure to have you join us on the show today.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be on this program, and thank you for bringing me in.
Absolutely. We hear of how advanced and, first world countries are using technology to do a lot of things in the health sector. So we're talking telemedicine, we're talking precision, what's it called again? Precision operations. We're talking of, building data, delivering drugs. There's just so much. But, clearly, you're in London, you're in UK, where you practice as well. But how can we transfer all of this technology down to our own system?
Yes, that's a very valid question. Let me start on this premise. I know there's been a lot of conversation and concerns, about people migrating, this Japa syndrome and the potential for Nigeria to lose its critical talent, brain drain and all that. But I think on the flip side of the coin, there are actually some advantages to that particular phenomenon. Let me put it this way. So for instance, now, for me myself, I Japa about 20 years ago, and but the advantage I've seen, and with a lot of diasporans, is that we've been exposed to the system, to the UK system, to the developed economies and all that, and we thought, look, there are a lot of this value that we can replicate back home in our country. Yes, we know there are challenges with infrastructure. We know about the challenges with security and all of that. But the good thing is that we are seeing the possibilities of replicating some of the solutions, not necessarily replicating it back word for word, but in terms of customizing something, solutions that are applicable to our local environment. And for us at my medical bank, which is the company I run both in the UK and Nigeria, this is being one of our driving missions. That look, instead of just moaning and complaining about challenges in the health sector, what can we do to make a difference? And this is where we are coming in to say, look, we can actually deploy digital technology to solve some of these problems. And I'm going to be enumerating some of the ways this has been done. But let me say something quickly. I mentioned at the beginning that I relocated about 20 years ago, and within those 20 years, I come to Nigeria every year. In fact, I've been to Nigeria twice this year. So I shuttle between these two countries. So it's not as if I'm permanently based in the UK per se. In addressing it, there's a very vital awareness that I've seen. So when I left Nigeria 20 years ago, there was nothing called internet banking. 20 years ago, there was nothing called Jumia, Konga. There was nothing called e-commerce platform and all of this. There was nothing called Uber. There was not even Facebook. You understand? It was not possible to say you wanted to withdraw your money from ATM. There was no ATM machine. But if you look at the landscape, so many things have changed as far as digital technology penetration is concerned, across all sectors. But the critical health sector has not benefited from that kind of revolution.
So now that's the question. How can we, like you said, we can't replicate everything verbatim. We can't do it because we have our own peculiarities. We have our own culture, and all of this. How can we? What can be done differently? Because I mean, the opportunity, the challenge is there, and that challenge needs a solution that I think technology can proffer.
Absolutely. So let me just enumerate a few ways that digital technology can make a difference in there. So and how it's already making a difference. So we're not even talking of something completely futuristic. We're talking of something that is here and now and here. So let me start with the healthcare facilities, the hospital system. So roughly there are about 42,000 hospitals and clinics across all the 774 local governments in Nigeria. Majority of these facilities still use a paper-based record. So most of them do not have electronic medical record. So one of the ways that digital technology is making significant difference, and solving problems and making life a lot better, for the healthcare professional, the doctors and the nurses that are constantly stressed, is through the introduction and adoption of electronic medical record. Now, but beyond that, let me even come to the side of the patient. There's something we call a personal health record, which allows patients to even take ownership of their own health record, to be able to have access to their record, to be able to manage, their health information, to be able to schedule an appointment with doctors, to be able to, go for telemedicine consultation with doctors. For instance, in the year of COVID, that 2020, when there was lockdown, we know what was happening, that hospitals were not opened, clinics were not opened because of the lockdown, and then because of the fear of contracting virus. Now, it doesn't mean that some other diseases are disappeared. It doesn't mean that people started, no other fever or malaria or cancer, they all go. No, people still had those conditions. So what we saw was that it created an opening for medical services to be delivered virtually. So, for instance, we've seen the growth in uptake of telemedicine in a consultation, which is another way that digital technology can actually make a big difference to cut down waiting times in our healthcare facilities, and to be able to make it, because there are a lot of conditions that do not warrant coming to the hospital. You don't need to see a doctor, for instance, if you are managing certain long-term conditions. These are conditions that can be monitored remotely. For instance, in the UK, there's a concept called a virtual ward. UK is one of the country that is pioneering that that concept. What virtual ward simply means is that a patient can be discharged home, not necessarily because they are totally fine now, but because the conditions they have can be conveniently managed from the comfort of their own home. So exactly. So these are some of the ways.
Can we do that here? Can we do that here? I mean,
absolutely. All it takes is number one, you have the healthcare facility, the provider, the doctor, the nurses, and our doctors and nurses, they are skilled. If not, if they are not skilled, they will not be hunting them. They will not be hiring them en masse in the UK, in the US. So we have the workforce to do that. Number one. Then number two, you need that internet connectivity. Internet connectivity is more than 50%, penetration in Nigeria. So at least, like I said, we might not solve all the problems at once, but we have a very large, internet, penetration in the country to make that happen. Yeah. Then number three, of course, the participation of the patient in terms of, all it takes is that, look, why they are in the comfort of their home, they can connect with a doctor or a nurse, from their mobile phone, or if they are to record their own blood pressure, for instance, or they have a family member that can record some of their vitals for them. It's just a case of taking the reading and then sending it to the provider, and the healthcare professionals will do the needful from there. They will be able to detect where there are anomalies and where they need to come in. Yeah. So this is one of the ways to free up bed spaces, and to relieve our already overburdened doctors and nurses.
Let's look at awareness. I mean, this thing sounds so good the way you're saying them. We can do this and do this, but I mean the awareness. Like you said, we have over 42,000 hospitals across the country. I mean, the percentage of those who have started adopting that, I would even say that it's mostly maybe the private hospitals that are perhaps would have taken a lot more steps in doing this. But we have government hospitals, in faraway villages that would need this critical. How much awareness, is out there? I mean, just lastly, as we wind down this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, you're absolutely right that, it begins with a conversation. And the thing is this, just as with the finance sector, for instance, at a time was when we thought, internet banking would not be possible, that, that digital, mobile banking and all of that, that the level of literacy is low, level of internet. But today, I mean, we know most people do, what we call, all these transfers and all of that. It's the same principle. So it begins with that awareness, and this is where private organizations like us, like my medical bank, for instance, where we commit. So we need the private sector to stimulate this conversation. We don't necessarily have to wait for the government, and this is where we're having, taking that conversation to the providers, hospitals and doctors, all of that, to say, look, yeah, these possibilities exist.
Well, the possibilities exist. Let's hope that people will buy in and, of course, make things and life easier for them. But I have to say thank you to you for joining us today on the show, Dr. Ayo Adebamo, and sharing very incisive thoughts on how technology can shape our health sector. Thank you again for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, that's where we are. That's where we'll wrap it up on the show today. Thank you so very much for watching. But as always, would leave you with the most viewed videos on our YouTube channel in the past week. I'm Victor Matthias. Bye for now.
The protest that broke out following the governorship election in Bayelsa State kicks off this week's most viewed videos in 5th place.
And I gave out the impression that everything's going to work perfectly.
It is followed in 4th place by the candidate of the SDP in the just concluded Kogi governorship election, faulting INEC's conduct of the election.
But I want to believe the team that were sent to the state were the one that compromised. Before the election, before the commencement of the election, the result sheet is already out.
Third spot is taken by the Nigerian army, promising to deliver a safe atmosphere for election in Bayelsa State. In 2nd place is a Labour Party agent in Bayelsa being beaten and taken out of the collation centre for alleged disruption of the process.
For the police.
When the American dollar as much as sneezes, the Naira goes into a coma. Why?
While in 1st place is Professor Lumumba, blaming Africans for the suffering.
In Kenya and many other countries, we still believe that somebody else's currency is what must define us.